Hi guys, this is lesson 10. We are going to compare the lines and patterns that are generated by addition rules and multiplicative rules. So basically, we're going to be seeing rules that involve multiplication and addition, and we're going to be comparing lines and looking for patterns. So kind of similar to lesson 9, but of course, they're extending it a little bit. All right, so I'm on page 55. I'll do pages 55 and 56 today. So for the first one, they want us to look at this coordinate plane and do the following tasks. So this one says, line P represents the rule that X and Y are equal. So I'm just gonna start jotting some things down, some notes to kind of help me. I know line P is X equals Y. So that is the rule for this line P right here. All right, they want us to construct line D so that it's parallel to line P and contains point D. So what they're saying is that we're gonna make a new line parallel to point P. So it's gonna go like this, and it needs to contain point D. So here's what I'm gonna do to know how to get it to be parallel. If I start at line P and I count the spaces to line D, anywhere I plot a point, it has to be that number of spaces. And that's how I can keep these lines parallel. So if I start here, I count 1, 2, 3, 4 up to D, which means this line, D, is always gonna be 4 units away from line P. So I can do the same thing right here, count up 1, 2, 3, 4. A point will be here. I can go down here, count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Another point would be right here. Okay, I could do it again right here if I wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another point. Okay, so they want us to construct the line. It's called line D. So you're gonna have to take a straight edge and do that. Make sure it's going through point D and the other points that I just plotted. All right, that's line D. Name 3 coordinate pairs on line D. Well, I just showed 3 coordinates, so I've made my life a little easy. Let's do this one first. I see this goes to 1/2. So the X value will be 1/2, and the Y value will be 1. Here's 2, 2.5. All right, I want you to find the coordinate for this point right here. So you can pause the video if you want. It should have been 1, 3. And then find the coordinate for this point as well. You should get 4, 6. Okay, now we have 4 different points. And we also know that it's parallel to line P. They want us to identify a rule for line D. Okay, so here's how we can think of rules, starting with the X value and looking at the Y. So I'm noticing, let's start with 4, 6. I'm noticing to get from 4 to 6, you have to add 2, right? Now, if that's my rule, if it's really X plus 2 equals Y, then that means I can add 2 to this one and this one to get the Y value. So I need to check my rule. It's one thing to just say, okay, here's the rule. It's another thing to actually go and check and make sure your rule is correct. So when I go from 1 to 3, adding 2 works. 1/2 plus 2 is 2.5. So it looks like that rule works. So you could write this rule in a couple different ways. You can write Y is 2 more than X. You could say X plus 2 equals Y, something like that. I'm going to write Y is 2 more than X. That's a nice clear rule. All right, now we're going to construct another line, line E. It needs to be parallel to line P again, and it needs to contain point P. I'm sorry, E. So here's line P. Line E needs to be parallel to it. So I'm going to do the same thing that I just did before. I'm noticing if you start at line P and you go down 1, 2 units, then you get to E, which means any points on line E need to be 2 units away from this line to make it parallel. So starting here, counting down 1, 2, I can put one here. Let's start here, 1, 2, put a point here. They want us to construct the line and then name 3 points. So take your straight edge, draw your line. And this is line E. All right, name 3 points on the line. I just made a few. So this first one is 1.5, half. Okay, that's this one. We can do this point up here. It is 5, 4. And then, oh, I need a third point. Let's just do this one. All right, 6, 5 is the last point. And again, it could be any of these points on the line. I just chose to do the ones that I have already drawn here. Okay, now they want us to write a rule. So I'm gonna start with 6 and 5 and see if I can come up with some rule, and then I'm gonna go back and check it with my other 2 points. So I know that 6 is 1 more than 5. So right now I'm thinking that maybe the rule just has to do with subtraction. So right here, it kind of looks like you can take x minus 1 equals y. That means I'm taking x, subtracting 1, and getting y. All right, let's see if that rule applies here. Taking x, subtracting 1, getting 4, that works. 1.5 minus 1 is 1/2. So that rule actually did work. So I'm going to write it as y is 1 less than x. Okay, now we're gonna, kind of like you guys did in lesson 9, compare these different lines. It says compare and contrast lines D and E in terms of their relationship to line P. So I'm comparing D and E with P. So let's first talk about line D. Line D, you have to kind of look at the coordinates and compare them. So I'm going to look at the y coordinates, and I'm noticing that in line D, it has y coordinates that are greater, 3 greater than in line E's. So I'm going to write that as one way I've compared. All right, and then another way to compare them is that they are both parallel to line P. All right, and then the last one, it says write a rule for a fourth line that would be parallel to those above and would contain the point 3.5, 6. Okay, so I'm gonna start by actually plotting this point 3.5, 6. 3.5, and then 6 would be up here. Okay, so it would be easiest for me to kind of, I guess, estimate where this fourth line would go through. So it has to be parallel to all these points. I'm noticing that it is just 1 unit, or I guess it's more like half a unit above D. So this would go through all these points. You don't have to draw it, but it's just helping me kind of visualize what that fourth line would look like. Now I have to come up with a rule for this. So I've already been given the point 3.5, 6. When I look at these 2 points, I can kind of figure out what a rule might be for this one. So it looks like it's getting bigger from the x to the y, 3.5 to 6. So I'm gonna think, all right, am I adding or am I multiplying? Well, if I were adding, I would be adding 2.5 because 3.5 plus 2.5 gets me to 6. Now, I can say that, but I also need to check another point to make sure that rule works. So I'm going back to my line here, and I'm going to pick out another point that would fall on this line. So let's say it was this one. That point is 1, 3.5. Now I'm going to check if my rule works. My rule right now, I'm going to say, is that y is 2.5 more than, y is 2.5 more than x. So here, can I add 2.5 to 1 to get to 3.5? Yep, that works too. So it looks like my rule is correct. Y is 2.5 more than x. And then why do I know this? They're parallel. And I also know that it would follow the same kind of pattern as line D, but it has a higher y value. And why does it have a higher y value? How can I tell it has a higher y value? Is because it's above line D. I know this because it's parallel. All right, that is page 55. I'm going to make another video for page 56.